right, we're back at it again today with Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. So I know this book is so popular because the movie just came out, because it literally took me, I want to say 3 months to actually get my hands on this book. So as soon as I got the book, I was like, I got to read it in like a week or else I'm going to have to return it and then wait another like 5 months to get the book. So here we are. Let's get cracking. So Ryland Grace, he wakes up from a 4-year coma on a spaceship and he has one goal: to find out how to stop astrophage from eating the sun's energy output with his new friend Rocky. So a bit of an FYI, this book, and it's advertised like this, so it's not like too much of a shocker, but it is super science heavy. And I didn't realize how science heavy until I saw the vast number of experiments that Grace conducts in this book, right? And my only advice to you is, if you're someone like me who isn't very sciencey, like I last took science when I was in VCE and then never again. My advice is, do not try and get in like to the weeds with the experiments that he conducts, right? Just take the results that he gets and then move on. Because I initially was like, no, I'm locked in. Let me actually try and understand the experiments that he's doing. And some of them like aren't too hard to follow, but some of them he really gets into like the thick of it. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, right? So yeah, just take the results he says and then move on, right? Best case. So kind of how the story is driven. It's very much plot driven, right? There is a bit of like character growth from Grace, but like not like too much. It's not like he was a shit person, now he's a great person. He was dumb, now he's smart, right? He's a scientist that got sent as one of the astronauts to Tau Ceti to try and save Earth, and by the end of it, does he save Earth? I don't know. You tell me. Well, I won't tell you because it's a spoiler-free review, but you'll find out in the book. But yeah, there's no real character growth, and that's fine, right? This book is mainly plot-driven, and it's mainly driven by Grace's kind of continuous experiments and kind of better understanding of astrophage, so that's fine. The pacing of this book. So this book is long. It's like 475 pages, but the pacing is medium, right? So it's not super drawn out and super long. Very nice and choppy, very fast, very action-packed. You know, love it. My fave. And also the reason why the pacing doesn't seem like super slow is because Weir jumps between kind of present tense of Grace being in the spaceship, right? And past tense, where he's back on Earth, and kind of it like Weir takes us through his journey of, you know, being kind of brought onto this whole Project Hail Mary kind of massive thing, and like his process and progress and what he learns and all that, you know, throughout that journey, right? And this is actually one of my absolute favorite types of writing. I love it when authors do present and past, because it means that also, apologies if the sound, my boyfriend is cooking up a storm. Well, he's cooking shin ramen, but you know, he's having a whale of a time. I kind of love this writing style because any questions that Grace kind of thinks about throughout the book, in the present, is answered with kind of flashbacks, right? It kind of reminds of the Raven, like, and then it does all that shit, and then it gets like a memory, and he's like, oh yeah, shit, I know that, right? And the reason why he has these flashbacks and doesn't wake up with like a full set of kind of all his memories is because he was given something so that he would wake up and just kind of focus on the mission on hand and not think about the past, right? So that's why that's happening. So like for an example, Grace, he questions why him and his 2 crewmates were put in an induced coma for the duration of the trip to Tau Ceti if it meant that 2 of his crewmates died, right? And you find out it's because Strat, who's kind of the head of Project Hail Mary and this whole kind of saving the Earth endeavor, she requested the astronauts to be put in a coma because she found out that people would go under like psychological trauma if they were put in a cooped up space for too long, right? They would either kill themselves, kill each other, go crazy. And you don't want those kind of people trying to save the earth, right? You need them to be in their best mind state. They can't be just in a corner of the room like, right, and they reach Tau Ceti and then everyone just dies. There's no point, right? But yeah, like something like kind of those kind of scenarios would come up a lot in the book. And I really liked it because, you know, if I didn't leave the book being like, I wonder why this happened, or I wonder why that happened. It was very logical, it was very methodical, it made sense. So it wasn't a lot of me like sitting in the back like why? Like, what the hell, why would you do that, right? Because everything made sense. It was fantastic, right? But yes, moving on, let's move on to the characters. So you guys all know I'm an absolute for a non-human sidekick. And I got that in the form of Rocky, who is an Iridian engineer, so an extraterrestrial, right? So let's start with him. I love Rocky. He is the cutest little bit. I hate spiders, and he's described as like a spider, but like a rock version. And initially I was like, ew. But then like, he has the cutest things. Like he does little jazz hands apparently when he's really excited. And then he says, amaze, 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 every time he like is really happy. And it's just like his cadence, because like in the book, he obviously doesn't speak English, but he just like speaks kind of in sounds that Grace says is similar to like how whales sound, right? But Grace kind of is able to translate those sounds, and he kind of translates it like word to word. So the cadence is a bit like weird. It's not like proper English, but it's just really cute. And Rocky as a character, he's very intelligent and he's just really sweet. And he's just like such a breath of fresh air. Like he has so much hope, because he actually, we find out he's in the same situation as Grace, where he started in his ship Blip A, what Grace calls it, with 23 people, 23 Iridians, and it ends up just being him. His entire team dies, and this poor thing is just like floating through space, just like fixing the ship and just like trying his best. So it's just like, yeah, it was just really sweet. Just Rocky was a great character. I loved him. I would die for Rocky, right? I would kill for Rocky. I love him. Moving on to Grace. So he's a human, so he's not as exciting. But still, Grace as a character, he's really funny. The whole book was written from his POV, and it's pretty much just like his internal thoughts. And those thoughts are really hilarious, right? So he's a great guy, funny character. But the thing that I loved most about this character is kind of how the way that he tackled situations, right? He tackled them in a very methodical and logical way. He is a scientist, so it makes sense, but it's just, once again, just really refreshing to read a character that isn't like super, like, goes off the deep end. It's like, oh yeah, cool, let's do this idea, and then just runs with it, right? They like take a step back and they're like, okay, how do I actually figure this out? Like, let's not freak out here. Let's not just jump on like the first idea that I have, right? He's an impulsive, right? He takes everything from a scientific point of view, and it's great because it means that the way he handles kind of tasks is very like, as I say, logical. My favorite word, right? Put a logical count on the side or something. But yeah, and I think it's because that's kind of the way that I function. So it's really nice to read a character that also functions that way. So it's really nice to just read a character that is kind of similar to me. And those are the characters, right? So, final reviews. I give this book a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was really funny, despite the fact that Grace and Rocky had an immense amount of pressure on their shoulders. They made it funny. It was great. Once again, very logical, which is great. And it was surprisingly heartfelt and has a shock ending, which I always love. Because, so one thing about me, this is like a bit of a side rant time. I have this really bad habit of going to the last page. I do it because I'm like, I want to see how many pages the book is so I can track it in my Goodreads, like my percentage read. But then I always end up reading the page or like reading like bits and bobs. And then I spoil it for myself. So I thought I spoiled the ending, but then when I got to the ending, I was like, oh shit, okay, you took that turn. I didn't even think of that being an option. And yeah, so the ending was, I mean, it was a happy ending, but not the ending you would think. And that was really cool, right? I like it when books, I mean, I don't like when books have a sad ending. That really bums me out. But I like it when books kind of have an ending that you just didn't think of. I'm like, oh shit, what an interesting ending. But yeah, so it has this. And one thing, like I mentioned, it being surprisingly heartfelt, this book actually made me cry. I didn't even think that was possible because I was like, you go into the book knowing that Grace and Rocky, well, Rocky's ship has enough fuel to take him back to his home planet. But with Grace, you know, like from the beginning that it's a suicide mission. He gets shipped off to Tau City and he's not coming back, right? But what made me cry in this book was Grace having to explain to Rocky that it was a one-way trip, right? Because Rocky is like, oh my God, like, it's okay, we'll find the cure, we'll fix it, and then we'll both go back to our planets, and then it'll be hunky-dory. And then when Grace explains it, I felt his emotion, right? I felt how sad Rocky was, and it made me cry. And that's good writing, especially for a book like this where I was laughing for most of it. Having that kind of emotion evoked was like top tier. So overall, this book is just like class, man, absolute class. Being a science fiction, I genuinely thought it was just going to be a load of just like experiments and, you know, just a lot of like high stakes, which it really is. It is high stakes, but it's so much more than that. I like I'm holding the book down here. What the hell's going on there? But yeah, it's so much more than that. And I honestly do recommend you guys check the book out. And I would recommend checking the book out and then watching the movie. I've done it the other way around where I've watched like a movie or I guess a show based on a book and then read the book and then started drawing parallels and I'm just like, oh, this sucks. Whereas if you kind of go in with a clean slate with the book, you can really kind of appreciate it for what it is as opposed to trying to compare. Just a little bit of a kind of hot tip from me. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me today and I'll see you next time. Bye guys.